Okay, so how much are we creating in our lives versus how much are we consuming? This is an idea that I've been playing around with for a while, and to preface, it's important to note that basically all major religions and all major religious texts state that as humans we are God manifested in human form. We are the creators, essentially. We are creators, and basically the sole purpose of humans, the reason why we were put on this earth, is to create. And so how much are we creating versus how much are we consuming? Like, what's the ratio? Because ideally the intent is to create more than we consume in our lives, because creation, because it's basically the sole purpose of humans is to create. Creation is what brings us fulfillment, it's what brings us joy, it's what brings us bliss. Tapping into our creative potential, our creative energy, and aligning ourselves with our purpose on this earth, and then using that as a vehicle to pour our life force energy into creating, building. And creating looks different for everyone because we were all put on this earth for a very specific reason, by no coincidence, and we all have a very unique life purpose. And so how much are we creating versus consuming in our lives? If we just look at consumption online, the vast majority of people probably have a 1,000 to 1, if not 10,000 to 1 creation to consumption to creation ratio, where we are just endlessly consuming mindless brain rot content on social media alone. And that's just social media. Like, the vast majority of people are scrolling for an hour to a few hours a day, and what are we creating? We're not creating anything. And that's why, if we, you know how you feel if you, after you doom scroll for like an hour or longer and you get off, you feel crappy, right? And that's because it's from all the mindless consumption. Basically, in today's world, in today's society, we are obese with information and content, whether it's from social media or it's shows, watching shows on Netflix, binging shows, watching TV news, reading stuff online. It's all consumption of information that is largely irrelevant and a distraction. So how much are we creating in our lives? If we look at the vast majority of people, just on consumption of internet content alone, the ratio of consumption to creation is like thousands to 1. And in addition, in our society, we're taught to seek out answers and seek out information and solutions to all of our problems as well. So anytime we have a problem or we're struggling with something, we're taught that there must be some piece of information out there. The answer must lie in some book. It must be in some person. Yeah, so the whole thing on pharmaceutical drugs, I completely forgot to mention here in this context of like searching for external things, searching for something outside of us to consume, to quell our problems, to numb our feelings. Basically, it's a huge one in today's society. Huge topic for another video, but that's like absolutely gigantic in this conversation. It's one of the most harmful, toxic things you can do is rely on, in this context, an external source, and that source being pharmaceutical drugs, to even feel like we can function in our day-to-day life. Yeah, it's one of the most toxic things that we can do. But it's a topic for another video anyway. Or somewhere outside of us. This is another direct path to essentially useless consumption of all this different kinds of information. And that kind of consumption is usually by well-meaning people who want to grow and improve themselves. However, a lot of times, in that case, the vast majority of the answers to all of our problems in life lie within us. And if we are endlessly consuming and searching for more information and perspectives to consume, all those things basically distract us from becoming aware of ourselves, and in turn allowing the answers to the problems that we may be facing or the challenges we may be facing to surface, because a lot of times they lie within us. Because after all, the secrets of the universe lie within us, because we're God manifested in physical form. So how much are we creating versus consuming? We live in a consumeristic society where, I mean, the first two things I just talked about here is purely consumption of information and consumption of content. But in general, basically, the vast majority of people live their entire lives centered around consumption and acquiring things. The vast majority of people's entire lives, their goals, their aspirations, their dreams, they're all centered around consuming things at the end of the day. Making money to buy and acquire more things, buy a nicer car, buy a nicer house, buy nicer clothes, buy nicer things. And it's really interesting to observe. The vast majority of people's dreams, goals, and desires are completely centered around consuming things. And don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the finer things in life. In fact, the finer things in life are absolutely amazing to experience. And there's nothing wrong with pursuing them either. However, if we let consuming things and acquiring things completely take over our consciousness and completely control us and dictate the direction that we choose to live our lives, that's when it becomes a problem. And this is why there's that common saying that most of you, I'm sure, have heard, which is, money doesn't buy happiness. Everyone's heard this saying, but yet we all still, the vast majority of us still live our lives just blindly pursuing goals and dreams that are completely centered around consuming everything. Buying more things, buying nicer things, going on nicer vacations to consume more things. Always focused on what's my next meal gonna be, what's the next show I'm gonna watch, what's the next thing I wanna buy, etc. And this is why a lot of people are living lives that are very unfulfilled in today's society. And a lot of people are lost. And so, how much are we creating? Because, like I said in the beginning of the video, you ask any successful person, and by successful I mean someone who's living a joyous, fulfilled, blissful, happy, loving, creative life, all their fulfillment is coming from, not all of it, but the vast majority of it, or an extremely large part of it, is coming from their creative endeavors, whatever they're building. For a business person, it's building their business, the business of their dreams. For an artist, it's creating art. For everybody, it's gonna look different. But I'm making this video to, I guess, encourage everyone to go create things. Go The next time that you feel an urge to scroll, or an urge to consume, or an urge to unnecessarily eat, or an urge to go shopping when you don't really need anything, try creating. Like, go try writing. Like, write down your thoughts. That's a super amazing exercise. Or go create a piece of art. Go scribble on a piece of paper. Or just go exist, as opposed to constantly consuming something, whether it's consuming music even, or listening to something, always listening to a podcast, even when we're eating food, double consumption. Why don't we just exist? Why don't we just go out and absorb the sun, go hike, go be in nature, Because the more that we consume, if we're always consuming some sort of something, we're literally distracting ourselves from ourselves. And that's why our creative potential in the vast majority of people is going untapped for their entire lives. But the second that we just be in the world, the second we exist and we sit in the present moment, or we go create things, this is where all the inspiration comes. This is where we become inspired to create more things. And as we experiment and as we create in our lives, experimenting with creating with different mediums and different things, then we begin to find like what we actually gravitate towards and what we really enjoy doing, and then maybe we can make a living off of that. Maybe we can make a life out of it. This is the whole intention behind this video, I guess, is because how much are we creating in our lives versus how much are we consuming, man? The vast majority of society just is obese. I mean, physically as well, because of all the unnecessary consumption of food. How much are we creating in our lives versus how much we're consuming? Go create, people. Create anything. The world is literally our canvas. Literally. And all of the endless, mindless consumption is making us miserable and distracting us from really tapping into our creative potential, which is the sole purpose of our existence as a species on this earth, which is to create. So go create, my friends. It brings us so much joy and fulfillment, and brings us into the present moment, right here, right now, where every single thing in this universe is created, is right here, right now. Nothing's created in the past, and nothing's created in the future. It's all right now, right here, right now. So the next time you feel an urge to unnecessarily consume, maybe try and go create something instead. And it can be as simple as writing down your thoughts on a piece of paper, scribbling, doing anything, man, to create. Because our true potential, so much of it lies in our ability to create. Creation is the path to fulfillment, to living a joyous life. Finding our creative outlet align with our soul's purpose to pour our life force energy into and create from our hearts, share it with the world, and make a positive impact on humanity and society. So go create. As humans, the intention really is to create more than we consume. And in today's consumeristic world, where basically everyone's lives are completely centered around consuming everything is just consumption, it can be challenging to get that ratio where we're creating more than we consume. Enjoy the beautifulness of the beautifulness.